fire away.
Ken, during the week you said that even though you had lost two of your last three, you didn't think you played that poorly. Has that changed today, or do you still think that you're around?
I think we were badly beaten inside again, and we knew that last week. We know for over the last couple of weeks. So contested possession was a significant disadvantage for us, and one side was really clean when they had their chances. Even with the clearances and stuff, we were not that far away in clearance, but it was just the way they were able to clear. They were really effective with some of their stuff, and we were quite ineffective with some of our stuff. So it's comes a time when you say, yeah, we're playing okay, or no, we're not playing okay at the moment. We've got certainly a lot of work to do to improve, and we have to get back to work really quickly.
6 goals down, just obviously playing catch up. It's just too hard at times, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's good when it happens the other way and you run over the top and you win. You think it's exciting and it's everything else, but for us it's really damning and damaging to what we've been able to do so far this year, that we've put ourselves in that position. And again, that's what happens when you start to improve. People start to acknowledge that you've improved, and then when you start to show a little few cracks, they come after you, because they, as Richmond said through the week, they wanted to scalp. They seen us as a scalp. That's in one way a compliment that they see us as a scalp, and in another way it's really disappointing that we don't respond to the same sort of stuff.
You mentioned the contested ball count before. It must have been pretty worrying. I suppose Blake was your best performer in that area, but there wasn't the spread that you'd shown sort of at the start.
No, I thought our captain was really good. I thought he was really strong in that area, albeit he wasn't as clean as he would like to be, I'm sure, himself. But he certainly worked really hard in that area, but it just wasn't enough others that were prepared to do it, and Richmond had more blokes really prepared to win in tight.
Turnovers from back half as well, especially early, really cost you.
Yeah, I just said that to the boys. I'm going to go and do a press conference. I'm going to get asked about our contested possession. I'm going to get asked about our turnovers, and rightly so. They were both well below par, and they shouldn't be accepted, and we've got to make sure we're better than that.
Is the back half turnovers a consequence or a price you can pay with that really aggressive movement out of defence with the chain of handballs rather than going long and safe? Or?
Yeah, I think there's a balance here, though, and you sometimes get mixed up in the balance. But I think you also get mixed up with Richmond's pressure. Richmond force you to handball a lot. That's why you go for some stuff that you normally wouldn't go for. So maybe that's a compliment to Richmond with the way they're putting pressure on. Some of it, no doubt, is our own silly fault. And we need to be better than that. But sometimes it's also a reflection of what the opposition do to you, and they were able to put us under enough pressure for some of them, but other ones were just really poor decisions.
What's the psychology of being hunted like? Because, you've been up there for a long time, you've been able to cope with it at times, but they really targeted you today.
Yeah, I think they do, and that's, I actually quite look forward to that, because that's what we've got to learn next. That's the next part of becoming a strong, solid side. You don't become a great side overnight. You take time and you take lessons and you learn them, and you keep thinking that you've got to get better every time. And what happens for us is we get another correction opportunity, and we have to make sure we take something from it, and we look to get better. But you're right, it comes with the territory, and if you don't like that, well, you'll give up your spot in the ladder, and that's what we're doing.
Do you think the result's going to be consequential for your top 4 chances, Ken?
Yeah, they are. At this time of the year, every result is so. But you don't know what's going to happen. We've got 6 games to go. There's so many things that can go on in the next 6 weeks. Who knows? Last year we went through a period where we lost 5, won 5. Won 5, lost 5, and this year we're getting a bit similar. That we had a great start of the year. Hopefully we've had our little downtime in the season. The boys get a real sting in the tail, which I've seen a little bit of it, but I don't think they've realised and been honest enough to say, there's some stuff not quite right with what we're doing. And hopefully today they go away and say, no, we've got to get this right.
Particularly when those losses come against teams outside the top 8, is that fair to say?
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter who you play. They're all tough games. They're all hard games. But position on the ladder, you look at it and you've got to make sure you own your position. We haven't owned our position for the last month.
Is it silly to say that there's some more urgency when you see how well Sydney are playing? Like, there's times when the ladder's so even, but you look at them and they're so far ahead, and you're off that pace right at the moment.
Yeah, not really, not for us. We look at what we're doing. You get to see the games over the weekend, but you don't take too much notice of it. Don't look back, don't look forward too far. It's a typical football coach's answer to you, I reckon. But we got to look really close at this week and make sure we get it right.
What's your philosophy on hanging the thread of changes over your players? Do you feel you want to stick with this group, or do you feel maybe you've got a few injuries at the moment, you can't make changes, or what would you say to the guys about if this continues, I am going to make changes? Or
Oh no, you got to earn your spot. You got to earn your spot on the side. If you don't earn your spot on the side, you run the risk of losing your spot. There's no doubt about that. We've got to reward people if they've got good form. We have had a couple of injuries, there's no doubt, but that's no excuse. Let's just reward people who are prepared to do the right thing over and over again. And if they show the opposite, they're not prepared to do it over and over again. You've got to make that decision. That's our responsibility as coaches to make sure we put people out there that we can trust the most.
So do you feel some guys maybe, you may be looking hard at them this week to keep their spot?
Oh no, yeah, we will, but we look hard every week to make sure we're trying to pick the people who are going to give us the best chance to win each game, and and we give them a fair bit of trust. There's no doubt about it, and you have to as a football coach. You can't go chopping and changing and throwing a heap of people out, bringing a heap of people in, because then stability is really important in footy, I reckon. If you go crazy with the other stuff, but there does come a time when you've got to say, no, that's not acceptable for Port Adelaide to play that way, and you have to make sure that some people get an opportunity if they deserve it coming up from underneath.
Did you get a look at the collision between Lobie and Conker from the box at all, Ken?
I didn't, but I asked on the way through. I said, what did the collision look like? But they said just purely, it seemed like a fair clash of heads where it's just purely accidental. That was what I was just told. So I don't know. You've probably got better vision of it than me right now, but it didn't seem like there was any remonstration or anything going on. I think it's just pretty much a football clash.
Earlier in the season, you spoke a lot about how you've worked really hard at trying to stop momentum when teams get a run on. Do you feel that you've gone away from that a bit, especially today when Richmond had that special burst in the second quarter? Yeah,
look, we weren't able to get our hands on the ball. There's no doubt, and they had their turn with the ball and they made it play, and that opened the game. That won them the game. That's a significant moment in the game where they won the game, and we gave up lots of entries today. We gave up a big score, really big score against us. I always say all the time, we talk about defence. We didn't defend very well at all today.
Gray, it was only half an hour ago, but have you got any indication on Gray, sort of how he's pulled up?
No, I think he's okay. I think he basically whacked the back of his head. If you've seen I've seen a little bit of that vision. He seemed like he just hit the back of his head and give his head a bit of a shake up. I would imagine all the typical things will happen, but I don't think there was too much in it. But I haven't spoke to Robbie, so I don't know.
Joe Pollock was obviously really influential for you at the start of the season, and opposition teams are putting in a fair bit of work into him lately. How does he work through those tags? And I think Jackson went to him for a fair bit today.
You know what? Some part of it is you just got to keep your head down and keep working pretty hard. Joe Pollock, I reckon today, a bit reflective of some of our stuff. There was quiet times and really exciting times, and some good times for what he did. But he'd be the first to say that I reckon he played patchy football again today, albeit some was really good, some was not so good. But again, that's what happens when you start to improve. People start to acknowledge you a bit more, and you learn to deal with it. And then once you go through that stage, you get to the point where you actually become a really strong, solid side, really strong, solid players.
Thank you.
Thank you.